today more than ever. Do you know who you're dating? Jeffrey Hartman, one of today's most publicized private investigators, featured on Donahue, NBC, ABC, CBS, in Newsweek, and many other publications. For the first time ever, Jeffrey shares valuable tricks of the trade to help you investigate a lover, mate, business associate, or anyone.
It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your lover is? Hi, I'm Jeff Hartman. Being a private investigator puts me in touch with a side of dating that many people just don't realize exists. You see, when it comes to relationships, many people just aren't who they seem to be. I've also learned that social conditions such as date rape, AIDS, and the drug epidemic have made dating dangerous. You see, a lover's lie can cost you your life savings or your life. Today, it's important to know who you're dating. You have a right to know. It used to be that we would just go out with the boy or the girl next door. We'd go to school with them, we'd fall in love, we'd get married. There were no secrets. How times have changed. Today, we go out with people who we've never seen before, in bars, in health clubs, and at business functions. We date these people, and we try to get to know these people, but we really don't know them. We have only the other person's word that they're straight, that they're not married, and that they don't carry any sexually transmitted diseases. But how do we really know? What I'm saying is, how can we protect ourselves? Well, today it's important to know. I will show you in this program how to do your own investigating. I'm going to show you the tricks of the trade, the techniques, and the sources of information that will show you how to find out just about anything on your lover or anyone else. It's important to know who you're dating. Blissful ignorance is a thing of the past. But how do we get this information? How do we find out? Well, when it comes to conducting a thorough background investigation, knowing where to go for the information is half the battle. You see, today we do an incredible amount of things that generate documents about ourselves. We go through life. We go to college. We get jobs. We pay taxes. We make purchases. We vote. We get credit cards. We buy homes. We do endless things. Each time we do something, we create a document. It's a document about ourselves. It's a document that someone, somewhere, can dig up and can draw some intelligent conclusions about our lifestyle. You see, there's no such thing as privacy. The shocking reality is that most of this information is public information. But where do we go? Where do we get it? How do we find out about our partner? Well, let's take a look at some of these sources of information. One of the most important sources of information is the local county courthouse. Most courthouse records are divided into two groups, criminal and civil. Both types of records are kept by the circuit clerk's office at your local county courthouse. Simply go to the clerk's office and tell them the full name of the person you're checking on. If their records are computerized, they'll run the name on their computer and they'll tell you whether or not your subject has a record. If the records aren't computerized, they'll show you the index books, or you can look up this information manually. The clerk will show you how to do this. I want to remind you that this information is a matter of public record, and you have every right to the information. If you run into a clerk who wants to know why you want the information, just remind the clerk that it is public record and tell her that you're doing some research. If you have any problems, ask for the clerk's supervisor. If your subject's name isn't found in the clerk's computer or the index books, then your person doesn't have a criminal or civil record. If his or her name does appear, you can ask to see the criminal or the civil case files. You can even make copies of these documents if you want to take them with you. These documents will tell you the type of criminal charge, the dates of the offense, and the disposition of the case. If a civil case exists, you can find out what type of lawsuit it was, the details of the case, and the amount of money involved. You can also find out the case disposition. Remember, divorce files are considered civil cases, and they can be an absolute goldmine of information. If your subject was ever divorced, find the divorce files. Divorce accusations, property disbursements, asset listings, and tax return copies are often found in divorce files. You can even make copies of these files. Do you remember what I said earlier? There's no such thing as privacy. In one of my recent cases, my client's new boyfriend insisted that he'd been divorced for about 5 years. Well, I went back to the courthouse and pulled the divorce file. I was able to tell my client that her new boyfriend had only been divorced for about 3 months. He had also claimed that he had received just about all of the marital property. Wrong again. He was left just about penniless as a result of this divorce. Why, he didn't get the Sony TV or the dog. You want to know what else I was able to find out? He was once arrested for beating his wife. That's information that my client had a right to know. Well, some other court records can also help you out. Marriage licenses are kept by the licensing department and will tell you if your friend has ever had romantic thoughts about someone else. Birth records are in the vital statistics section, and they can help you confirm your friend's age, parents, family tree, and hometown. If your friend has ever had money problems, chances are you'll find liens or judgments filed against him in the county recorder's office. After all, you wouldn't want to get stuck with your boyfriend or girlfriend's financial obligations if you married them, right? Are you interested in knowing if they actually own that beautiful condo that they take you to all the time? Well, you can find out this information too. Check the recorder's office while you're at the courthouse. Tell them your friend's name, and the clerk will be able to tell you what real estate they own. They'll even provide you with copies of the mortgages and deeds. You will learn the value of the properties and the addresses of every single piece of property he or she owns. Small copy fees will apply, and the clerks will show you how to look up this information. Sometimes you can even call to get the information over the phone. Clerks are usually happy to help. But you know, there's some information that you can get without even leaving home. For a very small fee, you can put the U.S. Postal Service to work for you. You can send away for all kinds of documents. Let's say you're interested in finding out whether or not your person of interest has any problems on their driving record. You could send a short letter of request to the Secretary of State Motor Vehicle Section. Call ahead to get their exact mailing address and their fees. Then send your letter. Include your subject's full name, address, and date of birth. They'll send you a response that will show a complete listing of every motor vehicle problem he's ever had. DUI problems, speeding tickets, whatever the case may be, it'll be on there. That information could tell you if you're at risk when you get behind the wheel with that person. There are other records you can also get by mail. If the person that you're involved with says that he or she is an owner or an officer of a corporation, you can send away for copies of corporate charters and articles of incorporation. Again, send your letter to the corporation section of the Secretary of State. Call ahead to get their fee and their exact address. They'll send you copies of these documents, and you can find out whether this person is being honest. If they're an owner or an officer, they'll be listed. If they're not, they won't. That can be important to know. If the person that you're dating says he or she is a licensed professional, a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, whatever, you can send away a letter of request to the Department of Professional Regulations. They'll tell you whether or not that person is a licensed professional, and sometimes they'll even send you a copy of the person's license. They can also tell you if that person has any disciplinary action against their license. Well, a lot of people that I investigate have serious criminal problems. That's why when I'm sending away for different types of information, I always send away for copies of district court, federal court, or bankruptcy court records. Again, check your yellow pages or call ahead for the information, but you can find out the addresses of these different courts that service your area. Then, send your letter of request to the district court, federal court, or bankruptcy court. If your person of interest has ever faced federal charges, they'll be able to send you a copy of the complete file. In the case of a bankruptcy, for example, they'll be able to tell you all of his or her assets and liabilities. They'll tell you what led to the bankruptcy, and they'll tell you if your assets are at risk if you get involved with this person. Well, let's take a look at some other sources of information. You know, I'll bet the last time you went to the public library, you didn't realize that you could check out your boyfriend or girlfriend while you were there. But let me tell you, there's a lot more information at the public library than just fiction. There are also facts. The library can be a great source of information, and reference librarians are usually glad to help. Some information is even available over the phone. But what can you get at the library? Well, starting with the basics, telephone directories will simply help you confirm that your friend is who he or she say they are. Phone books are usually available from every part of the country. The Haynes or Coles crisscross directory will help you look up your subject's address if you only have their phone number. This directory also tells you how long they've been at that address and will list all of the names, addresses, and phone numbers of their neighbors. This will also give you the names of other people who might be listed to that phone number. One of my clients was recently surprised to find out that her new boyfriend's phone number was also listed to his wife at the same address. I found that information in the Haynes. Most libraries have a periodical section that will allow you to locate any articles or news stories that have appeared about your subject. Many times these records are automated and can be keyed into by your subject's last name. Ask the reference librarian for help. Professional directories, Chamber of Commerce directories, and Who's Who directories will contain background information and biographies of many listed professionals. Check to see if your friend is listed. Annual reports are also on file for many public and private companies if your friend happens to be affiliated with such a firm. You know, I'll bet you didn't know you could use school yearbooks to help you do an investigation as well. I've used school yearbooks to help me do checks on dozens of people. Almost every library has a number of yearbooks on hand, and they usually date back for many years. These books can help you check out your friend's school history, and they can confirm that they grew up where they say they did. Garbage. Now that's an investigator's best friend. You know, when I was taking investigation classes at college, it never occurred to me that someday I might make a living by picking through someone's trash. But it didn't take me long to realize the investigative value of garbage. You see, we are what we throw away. Think about it. The entire science of archaeology is based on the principle that accurate and educated conclusions can be drawn about a person based on what that person throws away, what they leave behind. Well, the really talented investigators know this, and the smart snoops will always take a person's trash when they're trying to develop an accurate profile about that person. Imagine right now somewhere, someone is taking a look at what you threw away last month. Does that sound a little scary? Then I think you're getting the idea that investigating garbage can be a great way to find out information. But is it legal? Well, yes, the Supreme Court has ruled in California versus Greenwood on May 16, 1988, that taking a person's trash from the curb is legal. You see, trash is not protected by the Constitution. It's not protected by law. So once a person puts it on the curb, it's open for public examination. But what kinds of information can you find out about a person through their trash? Well, there are all kinds of information. For example, discarded liquor bottles and ashes will confirm that a person drinks or smokes. Thrown away prescriptions and prescription bottles can tell you what sorts of medication they're taking. Then a simple check of a medical encyclopedia will tell you what sorts of illnesses are typically treated by those drugs. This can tell you if you're at risk and just how careful you should be. Thrown away receipts will tell you where a person shops. Thrown away drug remnants, rolling papers, or other paraphernalia could reveal the types of drugs that a person takes. This, again, could tell you if you're at risk. Lipstick on a paper cup or on a napkin that's been thrown away can tell you if a person has a live-in friend or at least a female visitor. Collection letters from collection companies can tell you something about a person's ability to pay their bills. Pay stubs, bank envelopes, and bank statements will show you a great deal of information about a person's banking information and their assets. Notes with phone numbers on them could tell you who a person keeps in touch with. Trip itineraries, boarding passes, and thrown away airline tickets can tell you where a person's been, or maybe where they're going. Phone bills that have been thrown away are an absolute wealth of information about who a person keeps in touch with as well. Calendar pages and invitations could reveal a person's social life. Magazines and newspapers and other types of materials like that that have been thrown away can show you a great deal about a person's psychological profile. Yeah, garbage can be a really great way to establish a person's character. We've all heard the expression that all's fair in love and war. That sounds funny or maybe even a little cheap, but sometimes it's true. If your partner is hiding something from you, You have a legitimate right to know. And sometimes you have to be creative in developing ways to come up with the really good information. Sometimes these techniques will include pretext calls. Now, a pretext call is simply a phone call placed to someone who knows your subject. They'll answer your questions about your subject if they believe the pretense under which you're calling. So let's examine 3 effective pretext calls. The first pretext call is the employer pretext. Hi, personnel department, please. Hi, personnel. My name is Ed Stanley, and I'm calling from Midwest Leasing Company. And one of your employees, Mark Bradley, has filled out a leasing application with us, and we simply wanted to call and verify some information. Would you have a minute? Yes, he's listed Acme as his employer. Okay, great. How long has Mark been with you? About 3 years, okay. And his position is? Sales rep. Thank you. And could you verify his salary, please? $42,000 a year. Okay, that's what he listed. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Bye. Well, as you can see, one simple phone call verified where he works and how much he earns. I think you'd have to agree that that's pretty useful information. Now let's take a look at another pretext call. This one's called the neighbor pretext. Hi, Sarah Adams. Hi, this is Ed Stanley calling from the Midwest Insurance Group. And one of your neighbors, Mark Bradley, has applied for an insurance policy with us, and we just simply wanted to confirm some information. Would you mind a few questions? Okay, great. Now, Mark lives at 103 Oak Street, is that right? Okay, and how long has he lived there? 4.5 years. And does he live alone? Oh, I see, he is married. Well, that's been a great help. Thanks very much. Bye. Well, that was a great phone call. Not only did we confirm his address, but we got a bonus. Now we know he's married. I think you'll see the next phone call will be just as revealing. It's called the bank pretext. Hi, could you transfer me to bookkeeping, please? Thank you. Hi, bookkeeping. This is Ed Stanley calling from Midwest Leasing Company. How you doing today? Just fine. One of your account holders has issued a check to us, and we simply wanted to call and confirm that the funds were there. Okay. Great. The account number is 019636. And the amount is $2,200. Okay, that check is good. Thanks very much. You know what? He's also listed you as a credit reference on this transaction. Could you answer a couple of simple questions? Great. What's the average monthly balance on his account? $6,250. Terrific. And have you ever had any problems with the account, like levies or overdrafts or anything like that? You have not. Okay, terrific. You've been a great help. Thanks very much. Bye. Well, now we even know something about this person's assets. And I think you can see that with 3 simple phone calls, we have a good overall picture of this person. Well, now we've been to the library, we've been to the courthouse, we've even picked up this person's trash. But you still have questions, like where do they go and with whom? Well, sometimes there's just no better way to find out about a person than to put them under surveillance, to observe them. See, we're creatures of habit, and so when we are placed under surveillance, discreetly and covertly, we'll often tell someone a great deal about our lifestyle. The most common reason for wanting to place someone under surveillance is to find out if they're cheating. Did you know that half of all marriages are failing today? Many of those marriages are failing because of infidelity. If that many married people are cheating, how many single people do you think are cheating on the people that they're supposed to be involved with? Remember, trust your instincts. If you suspect something, you're probably right. Well, before we get into our actual surveillance techniques, let's take a look at some of the equipment that can help you do a more effective job. Well, one of the most important things to have is a notepad. You never know when you'll need to jot down that important address or license plate number. A small tape recorder is even better because it's easier to drive and take verbal notes, and you won't have to fumble for a pen. Well, many times you'll be out at night, so a flashlight can help you get that address or that important license plate number. Keep one of these handy. Binoculars are great if you're parked 2 blocks away. A still camera can help you get that important shot. And a camcorder is even better for documenting your work. You know, if you catch your mate doing something controversial, a permanent record can be a real eye-opener. Today, just about everybody has a car phone. I don't know what we did without them. They're great for pretext calls, calling for help, or leaving messages. A simple disguise like sunglasses and a hat will change your appearance radically. Give it a try. Now, if you're really serious about your surveillance, there are a few companies that will even sell you high-tech investigative gadgets. Check your local Yellow Pages under security equipment. Just what is the definition of surveillance? According to Webster, surveillance is being watchful or vigilant. For our purposes, conducting a surveillance will mean trying to learn something about someone by watching them. Basically, there are 2 kinds of surveillances, mobile and stationary. Right now we're doing a stationary surveillance because all we're really interested in is that silver car down at the end of the street. We want to see who gets in that car, when it leaves, and where it goes. So we're just going to sit a block or a block and a half away and keep an eye on that car. Also, surveillances can sometimes last quite a while, so you might as well get comfortable, be patient, but don't get too comfortable because you always have to stay alert. You never know when the person might get in the car and take off or make a quick move, and you'd have to go follow them. Be alert and be prepared. Be observant and take notes. And don't forget your camera. You never know when you'll have to take that quick shot of somebody coming in or going out of a certain place. Now, I realize that doing a surveillance isn't for everyone. So if you feel uncomfortable doing a surveillance, you might want to ask a friend for help. Maybe your friend can go along with you, or maybe they can loan you their car just in case the person that you're watching knows what kind of a car you have. Now we're working on a mobile surveillance. We're trying to keep an eye on that red car that's right in front of this white car that just turned off. It's always a good idea to keep one car between you and the person you're watching, if at all possible. You want to stay far enough behind the car that you're watching so that you don't create suspicion, but you don't want to get too far behind because if a traffic light changes, that could separate you and the car you're watching. So there's kind of a delicate balance between staying too close and staying too far away. Try to anticipate traffic lights as much as you can. You don't want to separate from your subject behind a light because that can ruin the surveillance for the rest of the day. As you approach a traffic light, speed up a little bit so that you get closer to your subject. That will kind of minimize the chance of being separated from the car that you're watching. Once you're through the light, lay back a little bit and increase the distance again. This will keep you out of the rearview mirror of the car that you're watching as much as possible. Try not to get right behind the car you're watching or right beside the car you're watching, because that becomes a little bit too obvious. You should also be careful not to get trapped in a middle lane in traffic when the car that you're watching is making a right-hand or a quick left-hand turn. You know, people rarely think that they're being followed. But if your subject makes a real quick U-turn, pulls into a driveway and heads back the same direction that you came from, or if they go around the same block more than one time, it could be that they're getting suspicious, so you might want to back off for a while and resume the surveillance at another time. It's never as easy as it seems on TV. One other thing, if you have a chance, check the mileage on the odometer before he goes on unexplained trips. You know, if he swears he's going out with the boys and the bowling alley is only 6 miles away and there's an 80-mile round trip on the odometer, he might have some explaining to do. Well, if you follow your friend to a bar, restaurant, or a hotel, you should write down the license plate numbers on some of the other cars in the lot. This way, if you ever have to prove that you saw that person there at a certain time, at a certain place, you could identify other people who were also there. This makes your statement more foolproof, and it makes their denial difficult. If the person you're following takes someone to a hotel, you should check into that same hotel. You don't necessarily have to stay there, but your receipt from that hotel will later prove to this person that you were there at the same time they were. When confronted with proof like this, a person will have a great deal of difficulty denying their guilt. Well, perhaps being a sleuth just isn't your style. Or maybe you simply don't have the time to be your own investigator. If that's the case, then hiring a professional private investigator can be a valuable option. Hiring an investigator is a very important decision. You'll want to make sure that your investigator will be proficient, will be ethical, and that they'll work hard for you. But how do you find a person who will do this? Avoid the yellow pages. They're simply a listing of every investigator in your area, and there's no guarantee of proficiency. If you know an attorney, call him or her. Many attorneys use private investigators from time to time, and they may be able to refer one to you. Well, if you can't do this, and you have to go to the yellow pages, then I would suggest calling 2 or 3 different investigators and interviewing each one of them in their offices. This way you'll get a feel for how professional that investigator is. Always ask the investigator for references. Make sure you get a copy of their license and their insurance, because hiring an unlicensed or an uninsured investigator can be dangerous. Last but not least, get a letter of agreement. This is crucial, and it will help you avoid any misconceptions or misunderstandings that you might have with your investigator. Well, I certainly hope you've enjoyed our program, and I hope it's been helpful in your quest for a quality relationship. Do you know who you're dating? You have a right to know.